We will call the White Bear Township Town Board meeting of June 1st, 2020 to order. If you'll notice, we are now back meeting regularly at Heritage Hall here. We're practicing our 6 feet of separation, but we've got a lot of things coming up in the near future here that are going to require meetings that people are going to want to attend, and just doing this over the phone was not working, so. All right, Patrick, approval of the agenda, any changes?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we will be adding 3 different agenda items. First one under 8B1, we will be receiving a feasibility report specific to the Peterson Road improvement, and part 2 of that will be calling a neighborhood meeting. Additional added agenda items under 10A, the stable property 5685 Portland Avenue. We will be discussing major subdivision down there. And then 10B, we're going to be ratifying the action that the township took May 30th, 2020, declaring a 2-day curfew on the 30th and 31st from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. each day.
All right, that it?
That's it.
All right, motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Item number 3 is approval of payment of the bills. I know, we don't ever get to see them anymore, so what are you guys doing?
We are paying everybody.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to approve payment of the bills.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? That motion carries. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes of May 18th, 2020. Anybody have any corrections or deletions?
Mr. Chair, those changes were communicated to the town clerk, and we made those necessary adjustments to the minutes.
I have a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the May 18th, 2020 meeting with those changes as noted.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? That motion carries. Item number 5 is consent. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of them. If anyone feels the need to pull one off to address them, otherwise I'd look for a motion to approve.
I will move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? That motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 6, old business. Our first item is ordinance number 92. 2 parts to this. Patrick, are you going to take this?
Chad, do you want to take it, or should I?
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay, hold on. Just impressed with how fast you're moving here, Ed. I'm
Well,
sorry.
actually, I can find it. I can take it, actually. Give me a second to find it.
Okay.
Oh, I have it here.
Got it?
Yes, I did review the ordinance, and it is consistent with what state statute calls for.
You want to clarify the ordinance?
Sure, thank you. Sorry about that. This ordinance deals with the regulation of non-essential water usage for critical water deficiencies if such a water deficiency is declared by the governor of the state. Basically, it's a water emergency resolution. So in the event the governor declares a water emergency resolution, this ordinance would kick in governing use of non-essential water, such as sprinkling, obviously, but watering washing your cars, that kind of thing. So that's what it's designed for. It only comes into play if the governor declares a water emergency.
Has that ever happened in the past?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
You also didn't call the National Guard. Never know.
Anything's possible. So that's the purpose. And then, again, the ordinance is designed to meet the requirements of the statute. And it designates the town clerk as the person who enforces it and determines what level of sprinkling irrigation is allowed, which is actually already what we're doing when it comes to the sprinkling ban during the summer. And was part of what we actually did when we started meeting the requirements of the lake lawsuit.
So if this emergency was declared by the governor, then this ordinance would kick into place, and we would have to publish on our website and communicate with everyone.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yes. Well, the way I would recommend you do, if it ever came into play, is the town clerk would promulgate the regulations. Then at the next board meeting, the board would simply confirm the promulgations.
Similar to what we're doing with the civil emergency that was declared.
Exactly.
Okay.
You say promulgate them, I mean, approve them, is that what you're kind of saying?
Let's just get right down to it, approve them. Or, I think you pretty much have to approve them, though, because it's pretty much a requirement.
But since we only meet at twice a month, basically, isn't this when it's emergency declaration? If the governor says today, we'd have to ratify it in retrospect, I suppose.
That's what you'd be doing.
Okay,
In fact, as you're going to do later on with the curfew.
yeah.
You'd retrospectively, ratify the actions. So Pat would act, the board would then, at the next board meeting, regular board meeting, consider what ordinances, what regulations Pat enforced or put out for enforcement, and then you would approve those.
Okay.
This is a brand-new ordinance, correct?
Yes, it is.
I thought we had over 100 ordinances already. So how do we have a 92?
That I can't answer for you.
One might have,
Yeah.
one might have been pulled or canceled or whatever you want, rescinded.
Okay. All right, any questions of Chad or Patrick?
I'm consolidating power, be careful.
I've noticed.
Look at Steve Quiver.
But keep in mind, if the Supreme Court reinstates Judge Marinen's order, this is exactly what we're talking about,
Yes.
which we hope that she doesn't do, but they don't do. But we haven't found out yet. But that's exactly what Judge Marinen was ordering us to do.
All right, so you want this in two parts?
Yes, sir, please.
First is rescind the May 18th town board action.
I'll move to rescind the May 18th, 2020 Town Board action to call a public hearing, which was scheduled for June 15th, 2020.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. And the second one is to adopt the ordinance number 92.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 92, which regulates non-essential water usage upon critical water deficiencies,
As determined by the governor.
I was just
determined
gonna
by the
ask.
governor.
It's from sitting close to him.
I will second that motion.
All right, motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Just make sure it's clarified that with those words, my motion added his language.
Right.
Okay, if you're okay with that.
All right, moving on. Item 6B, the Emergency Management Team Report.
Yeah, believe it or not, COVID-19's been secondary.
Sheldon?
We, at our meeting today via phone with Ramsey County's the manager's office, we did not speak of COVID-19 for more than 30 seconds. It was more along the lines of the civil emergency happening within the state right now. Contract group did not meet since the last board meeting, so there's nothing to report there. We'll have a couple of points under 4, but Chad, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, nothing's really changed since the
Okay.
governor, I forget which executive order it was that he changed he allowed municipal governments to meet, exempted municipal governments from the requirements, and also raised the 10-person limit and allowed reopening of certain retail facilities. So, nothing new that I know of.
No. Under 4, Mr. Chair, Operations, Logistics, Administrative Offices, just as a note alluded to at the executive board meeting that we would be opening to the public today, June 1st. We did. We were fully staffed. We had light traffic. I think we had 2 bill payers and 4 or 5 permit seekers. We have social distancing landmarks throughout administrative offices to keep people apart, and we also are not allowing in more than 2 customers at a time. And today, like I said, was the first day. It went pretty well.
Is this helping, like, dog licenses then?
Yeah, Yeah.
I did have a call about that, too.
Yeah. So we're at the point now where, as Chad alluded to, with the governor's emergency declaration, to talk about our own that we declared back on, I believe it was March 16th. If the board has any need to rescind the resolution, just to kind of go back to normal as we were, the only thing that I would ask Chad's interpretation on something is that we have two committees or commissions that are still requesting that we meet via phone and not in person. Would rescinding the emergency declaration affect that request? Would they not be able to do that?
It would affect that request, because as long as this declaration's in place, you're allowed to meet by phone. The minute it ceases to be in effect, then you go back to the normal rules, which would be open meetings.
So we got something to talk about.
Do they think they can social distance themselves at these meetings?
Well, the two that are, I'm talking about are the planning commission.
No,
or not
public
planning-
safety and utility.
Public safety and utility. Both of those traditionally have met at the administrative offices, and it's almost impossible to space out appropriately there. If we had those here, I think we could pull that off. So,
Well, we'd have to see if that would conflict. Well, Gem Lake's not gonna start meeting yet, though, have they?
they have stuff on the calendar.
Okay.
Meet tomorrow and next Tuesday.
So we would have to coincide if we start coming here on Thursdays, make sure it's
Yeah.
open building.
And I can do that. I mean, that's fine.
Well, it's something to run by them, at least the chairs of each commission, to
Okay,
have them reach out to their members and see if that works for them.
okay.
I don't know how planning commission's going, because you guys are, you're Zooming, right?
Well, I'm showing up in person Wednesday night. Tom called today and said that it was an option. He wasn't sure which way it was going, so I hadn't, so I don't know. I don't know who's gonna show up. I'm showing up in person on Wednesday night at the township offices.
So Chad, could we have either staff or one of our elected officials be the sole person who shows up at the originally intended point? Because I know we talked about this at the beginning. So if either I, or say this Thursday when it's the Public Safety Commission, if either I or Scott or another representative who's gonna fill in for Scott wanna take place at Township Hall and coordinate the meeting by phone there, are we in compliance?
You are. That's always been my understanding. It just takes one member
Okay.
to be present.
Okay, so then why don't we just, if those two groups still want to meet by phone, I can be the person who's coordinating and the representative at Township Hall, and for those two. I don't know about what that'll do with planning.
Well, Tom is gonna be there.
Okay,
As far as I know, that's what he said today, that he and I were going to be, I told him I would show up because he had talked to the rest of them about
Okay.
whether they were or they weren't. They preferred a Zoom meeting.
okay.
I know that.
So staff is okay if we're the coordinating point if we rescind this emergency declaration?
That's fine, yeah.
We're good?
I would make one comment. They're eventually gonna have to start meeting in
Yeah.
person.
Yes.
Well, all the meetings we've had, I think it's cumbersome over the phone. It's just, there's too many people talking over each other. There's too much lag where no one's talking because they don't want to interrupt.
Totally agree.
Very difficult.
It's actually ironic, because when we started giving ayes and motions, I almost had started identifying myself again, like we did on the phone.
Yep.
I only know how Zoom controls the talking and the not talking. I've never been the moderator other than those. And the guy that's in charge, he can mute everybody, as we learned on the MAT call, the Association of Townships. And then you can isolate who talks and doesn't talk by the mute button. But in person is better. As long as we're on that subject, though, is there a way we can, in case there's a spike in any of this, that we can keep our emergency management team in place as part of this? Is that part of that order?
No.
I see a real reason to keep that tight-knit unit, because sometimes these decisions have to be made pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I don't feel we should give that up yet, that piece of it.
As part of the declaration, we didn't make any mention of the management team.
No,
So
no, I see no problem with that. My biggest concern is the open meeting law.
Yep.
Because once you declare the emergency over with, or rescind the resolution, then you're bound to meet in person.
Well, plus too, we got a lot of public hearings coming up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
over the phone would be literally impossible.
Oh, that would be impossible.
I wouldn't want to try it.
Nope.
So we are we're leaning towards rescinding it then? Is that what we're,
Sounds like it.
and having that meeting, those meetings here or not?
No.
Just
So-
one person?
Just one person coordinating until those committees or commissions are comfortable with meeting back in person totally as
Well,
a
The
board.
planning commission poses a bigger problem because you usually have a lot of public people for that. And if they choose to have a live meeting, which I'm assuming we are, it needs to be in a room where we have a little bit more flexibility with public, which is here.
What I have heard done is they only allow the people, the citizens in that are taught, want to speak to a certain subject.
Okay? Can
You
do
know,
that.
normally you just, everyone
come
comes
in
and
and wait.
sits here and waits till their turn comes, their issue comes up. The other way is just simply tell them, no, we'll let you know when your issue's up, and then you can show, and then you can come in.
Well, Patrick discussed that before on maybe next meeting at these public hearings, that he'll just go out and say, item
Yeah.
8E is on the docket. If
Right.
you're on that, come on in.
Yeah, you're right, we did talk about that, didn't we? Yeah.
So to be honest with you, those two boards, the Safety Commission and Utility, in the 18 months that I've been here, have never had guests.
Normally, it would be like a sheriff or
Yeah.
the girl who runs tobacco compliance.
Right.
Or,
So one at a time, and the sheriff hasn't been there. So I think maybe to get everything uniform, I'm gonna suggest that since both of those are a Thursday night, typically that's not what Gem Lake, or when Gem Lake has any activity here.
No.
I'm gonna suggest that we just meet in person, and we will space out like this as best we can. We can even use the audience chairs, that'll keep everybody apart. I'm totally with the board on the awkwardness of the phone thing. The quicker we can get out of that format, the better. So I'll see what they say about that, we'll go from there, but with that in mind, I would suggest or recommend that the town board rescind their emergency resolution.
what about EDAB?
Tuesday, we rarely have visitors for them either,
Was that next Tuesday?
next Tuesday.
But again, would that be here then? No,
Can't,
that might
'cause
be an issue with
Jim Lake's here that night.
So then it would be up to the members if they feel comfortable attending or calling in.
Yeah,
Well, you know, what they could do, you know, you're still, even without the emergency resolution, you're still allowed to appear electronically as long as you do the proper noticing, and they appear, wherever they're appearing from is a public place where the citizens can, if they wish, you know, observe them.
Okay.
So it can be done. I gotta tell you, I'm not too thrilled with those type of meetings, because, you know, if you don't do it exactly right, you really are in violation of the open meeting law.
yeah.
But it can be done.
Well, you're gonna reach, Patrick, you'll have to reach out to all the chairs of the commissions and have, at least solicit their members and see how they feel. We're gonna have to start meeting sooner or later, so.
The EDA, yes, the EDAB numbers are light enough to where I think we can pull off the spacing at administrative offices. Utility commissions have your numbers, and so is the safety commission. And that would be a little harder. So I would suggest maybe that those two, the safety and utilities, meet here. Stay apart and keep the EDAB on Tuesday together at Township, or the administrative offices.
And going forward, as long as we're doing this, planning commission meet here eventually?
Sure.
Like late next month, or this month?
Yep.
It's a special meeting, because this is really the May meeting that got postponed to Wednesday night. So there's another one scheduled for later this month of the planning commission, so.
We got a hot ticket item, they gotta get in there, huh?
Well, They got a lot of,
Got a few.
got a few.
Like, everything is starting to get back to,
Yeah.
So we can rescind it, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, sure. It's just whether or not you're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
From a staff perspective, we're comfortable with it.
If
We-
you meet here, will you arrange for special cleaning as requested?
Say that again?
The special cleaning up after our meetings?
Oh, sure,
Because
sure.
I believe Gem Lake has expressed concern over us here as it is during this time.
Yeah. Jim Lake has volunteered to clean up after tonight. They're gonna have some.
Oh, they are. The last I
Yeah.
heard you.
Yep, we got notice from them, Thursday or Friday that they were going to do tonight. Going forward, I don't know. I will find out.
all right, so do you need a formal motion to rescind this?
Yes, you would.
So I will move to rescind the resolution declaring a civil emergency originally passed March 16th, 2020.
Have a second?
I'll second it. But I have this discussion item. I'll second that.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion, Steve?
The further discussion has to do with my wanting to keep in place the emergency management team for some time going forward. It's separate from this civil emergency, but I think it's important that we address it at this time, so.
Then-
You want to make that a separate motion?
I'll make it a separate motion.
All right. Well, the first motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And then the second motion to keep the emergency management team in place.
I'll make a motion to keep the emergency management team in place and review again in 30 days for its rescission.
I will second that motion.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, moving on. Item number 7, we have no public hearing, so we'll move on to number 8, new business. First one is public works item, ash tree stump removal. We need to receive the quotes.
Yes,
I gather Dale has put this out for bids.
you did.
So we've taken down 82 ash trees
Mm-hmm.
this year?
This year?
You must be counting twigs, saplings. Realize there's that many.
I didn't either. And so the trees have been cut down and taken away, now we just gotta dig out the stump?
Got it.
They actually grind them. They got
Yeah, they
a
grind 'em
monster
down.
machine that does that. Well, we only got obviously 2 bids. Low bid was White Bear Lawn and Snow. That's not, Joe Ryle, is it?
Yes, it is.
A former White Bear Township employee.
Oh, boy, we take anybody.
He's got a pretty big business going right now,
Yeah,
so.
that's what Dale was saying.
All right, so any questions of Patrick that he can't answer?
Well, you answered the ones I already asked, so I'm impressed.
Does that involve all the, I don't think there's utilities and things, but that's all, there's hold harmless involved with insurance for us as a township?
The stump grinding? Boy, that's a good question. I don't know that. That's one I do not know, yes.
I really could not say. So maybe we should, you can always approve the bid subject to provision, subject to the successful bidder providing evidence of insurance.
I'd prefer to do that, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Only because I've seen some of these grinders throw rocks a long way.
Yep, so we can make that motion in light, or in lieu of evidence for insurance.
All right, then, Steve, you feel comfortable making that motion with
I-
that requirement?
I do. First, we have to receive the quotes, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So I'll move to receive the quotes from White Bear Lawns and Snow and Save a Tree.
I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. And then the second one is to award the quote.
I'll make a motion to approve the quote from White Bear Lawn and Snow in the amount of $9,845 for stump removal, noting the funds from the park, road, and bridge budgets, pending insurance information, holding this township harmless.
Do I have a second on the motion?
I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, motion passes.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before Larry gets going, I apologize to the board, but what should have been added, and we can put it under 10, what do we got, 10C.
I already lost track, so.
Under 10C, I would like to add discussion regarding Republic and Township Cleanup Day.
So do we have to amend the
Yeah,
agenda now?
yep.
You should.
Okay, that would be under 10 what? C?
10C,
Wait a minute, I already got a 10C. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 10C.
yeah.
All right, do I have a motion to amend the agenda to include item 10C?
I will move to amend the agenda to include item 10C, discussion of Republic and Township Day, I'm sorry, Township Cleanup Day.
Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All
Thank you, Mr.
opposed?
Chair.
All right,
Anything else?
That's blank.
anything else you want to change before we move on there, Patrick?
I'm just glad I caught that one.
All right, item 8B, this is a town engineer item, the Peterson Road improvements. Larry?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. We've been talking about Peterson Road for a number of months at executive meetings, at board meetings. But this report that was sent out just today is a kind of a culmination of the discussions we've had, and it kind of brings it all together. Because you received it today, I'd like, if the board would like, I'd go through each of the chapters quickly on what each of the sections, on what they talk about. So the first is just an introduction to the project, why we're looking at the project. 2 is a background of the project of Peterson Road. Existing conditions is just describing what is out there now, and proposed improvements are looking at what is planned. The funding gets into the estimated costs, and we, at several executive and board meetings, we talked about options, and we ultimately decided on an option of a 28-foot wide roadway with curb and gutter and sidewalk on the east side of the roadway. So those costs are put together for that option. Many of the other options we were looking at were very similar in cost, between $1,050,000 to $1.1 million. We talked a little bit about the assessment policy and assessment amounts. Part of what we were putting together was assessment amounts that were based off of a preliminary appraisal, which I've been working with Chad on. There's a funding source table that talks about how it would be, this project would be funded, and then a schedule. And then finally, conclusions and recommendations. In the back of the report is our appendices, which kind of describe the project area, show typical sections, and a typical section shows what the cut of the cross section of the road would look like with the curb and gutter and the sidewalk. We have an exhibit showing the road widths and right-of-way. There's a layout for the proposed utilities, and with this project, we're extending sewer and water. The water goes from H2 up to Mohegan Lane and connects and makes that looping connection. The sanitary sewer goes through a backyard area to serve several of the properties, and also on Peterson Road to serve the northern 2 properties of the project. Now, the project, as we've talked about, we stop at Mohegan Road, or just past Mohegan Road. We have an exhibit J, which kind of shows what we were thinking for a future roadway for Peterson Road with development. And so part of our recommendation was to stop the road at Mohegan Lane and then wait for the remaining part of Peterson Road. We have a street layout. Now, the right-of-way isn't even throughout this area, so we have an exhibit that shows how the street would lay out within the right-of-way. A cost estimate is included, an assessment roll. So the assessment roll shows all the properties that would be assessed and their share, including a street assessment, water assessment, and sanitary sewer assessment for those properties that don't have water and sanitary sewer. The map, assessment map, shows the properties that would be a party to that assessment. We have a geotechnical report, which gives us an indication of how much soil correction would be needed beneath the roadway to do the work. And then that section was used to create the estimate and the typical section for the project. And then again, coming back to Exhibit J where we had the future subdivision concept. So I can answer questions on any of the chapters, but I want to maybe dive in a little bit more on funding. So in the exhibit, on section 5, talks about project funding and the assessment amounts. And you can see the table 1 is kind of the cost estimates for street improvements, storm improvements, sanitary improvements, and water main improvements. And I glossed over the storm improvements. We'd be looking at catch basins along Peterson Road that would go to a ponding system in open space just north of Mohegan Lane. So that's the cost estimate for that. We just used a standard 25% for indirect costs to get our totals. And that indirect costs cover any design costs, engineering, inspection, administrative costs, legal costs, financing, and bonding. So coming over to table 2, we break that cost estimate up into the different categories, and we look at the what is accessible for the project. And we see 15 accessible units for street improvements on Peterson Road. And the trouble with part of the trouble with Peterson Road is it's one side fronted. So the other side is already developed off Province Lane, and so those properties are not party to the assessment. So, but we did want to count that frontage into the calculation so the other properties along Peterson Road aren't bearing the burden of a front or one-sided frontage, one side fronted street. So we have 6 units of unaccessible property that's assigned to White Bear Township, and one of those remaining is deferred because it's undeveloped. We're looking at a unit assessment rate for streets of $15,000. Moving to sanitary sewer, there are 8 units that are 7 units that we are looking at assessing for sanitary improvements, and one of those is deferred. We are looking at a sanitary sewer assessment rate of $12,500. Water is similar, although there's an additional unit that is picked up along H2 and Peterson Road that would be picked up for water. Again, that $12,500 for water. And in the table we have our assessment terms: 10 years assessment for the streets and 15 years for the water and sewer. And of course, the interest rate would be determined at the time of bond sale.
So Larry, you're saying some of these properties get street, sanitary, and water.
Yes.
So that would be 40 grand?
Yes, and we use the appraisal information to put this together, and we kind of used on the high side for now. As this project moves forward, there is opportunity to perhaps bring that lower. I want to caution the board that we must assess at least 20%, and with this formula that is before you tonight, we're at 29%. So it can't it can go down approximately 100,000 if we were to reduce that assessment amount. But we need to to be able to use bonds in the 429 bonds, we need to stay at 20% to do that.
But what happens if the appraisals don't come in high enough to justify the cost of the project?
Then you have to find other funding sources. It's whatever you bond for, you need to use 20%. So if there is a gap, another funding source would need to be used, a utility fund perhaps.
Something we'd have to talk to Tom Kelly about.
Yep.
So table 3 kind of brings it back to a funding scenario. Table 1 was the cost estimate. Table 2 was kind of an assessment breakdown. And table 3 brings it all together at a high overview for funding. Now, the township portion, including the town water fund, sanitary storm fund, all comes from bonding. I broke it out into the funds just to show how much was coming from each, but we really have 2 funds for this project at this point. The bonding for township funds and assessments.
So when you say the storm fund and the sanitary fund and the water fund, it's not actually,
It's the,
it's the portion of the bond that's going to be
yeah,
assessed against that.
exactly.
Okay.
And I could explain that a little better here, but
I was going to ask Tom if, do we have that money in those funds right now? But, okay,
and we don't, so it comes from the bonding.
okay.
But, and the township funds and bonding also includes those 6 units I mentioned, for the street portion, in that 460,000 up on top. The other piece I'd like to talk about more is the schedule. In that, we're here tonight, June 1st, accepting the feasibility report, and we're calling for a neighborhood meeting, but perhaps we could call for the public hearing as well. Because we need 3 weeks' notice for publication for that. If we wait, we have the neighborhood meeting, then call for the public hearing, before we order the improvements, we're running out of time to get this project completed this year, which may be fine with the board, maybe not, I don't know. But,
And the reason that we had brought this to you in kind of a compact form was the board talked about capitalizing on some really good bonding rates. So you're not required to do this year, but I think it'd be advantageous to the township if we did.
Do we need to have the
Sorry, Larry.
informational hearing before the public hearing?
we like to do that just to answer questions, so when the public hearing comes, they're giving input rather than asking questions. So the neighborhood meeting is, of course, not everyone attends the neighborhood meeting, and you end up answering some of those questions anyway at the public hearing, but it's a way to get some information out there, begin the discussion and dialogue before having the public hearing and getting some of those questions answered before that. But per statute, a neighborhood meeting isn't required.
So for this year's street improvement down on the south side, we had a couple hundred households. And so we've had some informational hearings just to get the word out, and repetition was kind of needed. Here you're talking a couple dozen households?
No, we have
Eight to-
mainly six, eight that
Six
are
or eight.
along.
So half a dozen
Yeah.
households.
And then you have the townhouses that would back up to the project that might have interest.
Okay.
I think the neighborhood informational meeting is necessary.
Is or is not?
Is.
Okay.
I do, only because on the night of the public hearing, they're gonna have people there, they're gonna approach it, and they may not need to speak, but they're gonna be here because they haven't had an opportunity. This is a big bite
It is.
for
Yeah.
them,
Okay.
and so I think there should be a time for them to ask the questions and get some answers ahead of the public hearing.
Timing-wise then, Larry, when would you ideally like the neighborhood informational meeting?
As soon as possible. so that we can have the public hearing here, the first part of July.
Do you need to have a set period of time between the informational hearing and the public hearing?
No, we need a set amount of time for publication of the public hearing. We need 3 weeks' notice.
So we
for
could
statute.
set up the public hearing when we need to have it set up, and then in the meantime, have the
Yes.
informational.
Yep.
So we're still on schedule for July 6th, correct?
For town board meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And then how much notice do we have to give for the public, or the informational neighborhood meeting?
We like to give at least a week, but week and a half, 2 weeks. So
Strictly
perhaps the week
practical.
before.
Yeah, it's not a statutory requirement. We're doing this as
So the week of
additional.
the 15th of June is probably is that what you're thinking?
Are we still on for the 26th for exec board meeting?
Yes.
All right, because I got it at the 19th.
No, we're the 26th.
I added it from my wrong calendar.
Yes.
Oh, I have it
The week of the 20th.
revised due to conflicts. It went to the 26th, I think.
All right, so if you can try, Larry, if you can try to schedule for sometime that week, the week of the 15th?
That'd be best, Larry. I'm out of town the 27th through the 1st, so.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm off?
Yeah.
Yeah,
who okayed
Prove
that?
that. Which of your bosses?
I have I have the executive meeting on the 19th, too.
I know.
Yeah, I did
My
too.
calendar was wrong too, so that, I brought it up to
Yeah.
Patrick, so it got changed.
Oh, wait, I have it, you have it, you have it.
Yeah.
3 against 1.
You win.
Only because the calendars that were sent out had it then, and I just transferred all of my calendars.
Yep.
So,
All right, let's,
okay, when is the executive meeting going to be?
26.
6.
26.
Okay, well,
All right. And that's at
11
8?
o'clock.
11,
Nope, we're doing that at 8, remember?
8.
Oh, we're
Is that-
moving it
no,
to
are we
8?
gonna actually meet for that one?
Yep.
Okay.
Glad you told me 8 o'clock, okay.
All right, we got a little off topic here.
Wow.
Larry's anxiously awaiting. Pull it back together, guys.
So if we have the public hearing on on July 6th, and you ordered the improvements, you're also allowing us to start on the plans and specifications. If the board is anxious, or feels like this project is going forward, you could make that approval in the second meeting in June, but before the neighborhood meeting, which I don't know if you want to do that, but it would allow us to get started on the plan so we could bid it sooner. But on a project like this, I don't know if you want to do that.
Unless you try to get the neighborhood meeting next week instead of this week, instead of the following week. Would that fall in the line better?
If you wanted to, if the board found it appropriate to go move forward with the plans and specifications ahead of the public hearing.
Might have an issue with paper posting, though. That was a deadline for, well, deadline for that will be next Monday, so, I don't know.
Thought you needed 3 weeks, no?
That's posting, okay, that's posting for any, if all the board members chose to attend the neighborhood
Right.
meeting. Okay.
All right, so we're gonna end up, oh, okay, we're gonna call for a public hearing tonight. For what day? The,
July 6th.
okay, July 6th. All right. So that still works if the informational meeting is the week of the 15th.
Yep.
Okay, let's plan on that route. Hey, I got a question though. There must be a dead-end water source at the Providence Lane townhomes, because it looks like you're looping in.
Yes,
That's just obviously to kill that dead end.
Right. Of course, with water main, the more loops you have, the more flexibility you have if you have a water main break, or it also promotes better water clarity to have it fed from multiple directions. So we're actually completing 2 loops. So we're completing the Providence Lane loop and also the Mohegan Lane loop, connecting to Mohegan Lane water main.
And the reason the sewer is going down the west property line of, and my east property line is because of all those septics that are in the back of those homes.
Yes.
Chad, I got a question of you, though, because I'm an affected property owner on this thing. Do I excuse myself from any of these?
You should abstain,
Okay,
but, yes, maybe you should abstain.
all right.
Abstain from comment or abstain from,
No, from voting.
from voting? Only voting.
He's still a citizen, he still has
That's
right
what I thought you were,
comment.
I thought that's where you were going, to say, no.
No, yeah,
Look, sorry.
no, just voting, that's it.
All right, that cover your overview there?
Yes, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I guess the one other thing that I'll work with Chad on is ordering the project when it gets to that point, if it gets to that point, on July 6th would need a supermajority.
I was going to.
So, that means 4/5 votes. So with one board member abstaining, then you don't get that 4/5.
There actually is a case on that.
Okay.
I'll have to review that case, but I think, it would still, if the other 2 remaining members vote for it, it would still meet the supermajority rule.
Okay.
But I'll verify that.
Well, so, Chad, you said you did see some appraisals come in late today?
The appraisal. Yeah, the analysis, actually, the analysis. It's not a formal appraisal, it's the analysis. Because at this point in time, all the appraisers really do is they don't, we use the term appraisal kind of uselessly at this point. What they're doing is they're doing an analysis to determine whether or not the actual benefit would exceed the cost, proposed cost. And the benefit was, as set forth in the TKDA's report, of $80 to $150 front foot for paving, another $25,000 for sewer and water.
Okay. All right, any other questions, Lair or the attorney? Hearing none. Let's see, you want 2 motions here?
Yes.
One for the...
Do we have to do a third one to set up this informational, or don't we have to even talk about that?
That's the second one, call the neighborhood meeting.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I'll move, based on the staff review and recommendation, adopt the resolution receiving the report for the street and utility improvements for Peterson Road.
I will second that motion.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
And obviously, I will abstain because this directly affects me. The second one is to make a motion for the calling of the neighborhood meeting. Do you need a specific date, Lair? Or you,
Well, and is that the neighborhood meeting or is that the public hearing?
That's neighborhood meeting, it says, that's what I was trying to
yeah,
figure out.
yeah, you're right, though. Third one probably for the public hearing.
Yeah. I'll move to set up as soon as practical a neighborhood meeting for the affected properties on Peterson Road, including the neighbors to the east.
I will second that motion.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, I will abstain. And then the third one is we need to call for a public hearing for July 6th? Is that it?
Yes, July 15th.
15th?
Isn't it the 15th, Larry?
That's the second meeting in...
No.
The week of,
Oh, the week of.
for the public hearing.
But public hearing
July
is the 6th. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to shut up now.
I'll make a motion to have a public hearing for the Peterson Road project for the July 6th meeting.
I will second that motion.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Again, I will abstain. All right, item 8C. We had a C1, Peterson Road. What was that? Did I write that down wrong?
I think you wrote that down wrong. We should be on,
There's an 8.
we should be on 10A now.
10A.
What happened to 8C?
What happened to 8?
Oh, my
Public.
goodness.
Oh, yeah, the
How about
stable
the-
property. My bad. Yep. So, we had, or, I went over this a little bit. This is the stable property discussion, 10A. So, at our last meeting, we had talked about Chad getting together some language about putting the property on 5685 Portland Avenue out for bid. And that is, he did come up with that language. What we need to do, and this is what we were trying to clarify before, the board had gotten a recommendation from the EDAB regarding accepting the preliminary plat on, or accepting the plat plan on the stable property. It was during a public hearing, and the board chose to table that. So talking to Chad before, when they tabled that, you tabled the public hearing basically continued, correct? Am I saying this right?
Well, I think you actually closed the public hearing. We took testimony from the public and
Okay.
closed the hearing.
All right,
But the discussion, the board discussion can continue.
got it.
So we don't need any more, the public hearing portion's over with.
Right. So what the board needs to do tonight before we move on is that we need to accept the plat, and then we will move on to talking about the bid process and what we're gonna do for potential sale of the property. So you have two things. We need to get that plat accepted by resolution, and then we can talk about the bid process on the property.
Boy, I sure thought we did that, but
I did too, Ed, honestly, but Patty, I trust Patty's minutes more than my memory, so.
you know, doing that, do we also have to do something with the declaration of the easement?
We've sent that, that's been sent.
Okay, so
That
all
one
right,
we
that's
know.
done.
Yep.
All right, so the first one is a motion to accept the plat as drafted by staff for the stable
Well,
properties.
It'd actually be approving the preliminary plat.
Preliminary.
I'll move to accept the preliminary plat for the 5685 Portland Avenue stable property. Make a motion.
I will second that.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, and then the second one is to approve the EDAB recommendation for, I've got the memo here, that it's called the Town of White Bear Request for Offers of Purchase.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Mr. Chair, before we do that,
Did
can
you
we
see this?
discuss? I did. Can we discuss it for just a?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I
Sure.
don't make a motion yet. My question has to do with, do we have to, if this is the document we're going to use, do we have to put in a where and, you know, and when does the bid time? Is this where you would put,
Yeah, I think Chad was putting that
Timeframes?
together as general language, and we'll specify dates and that kind of stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what time frame are we talking? 30 days?
We had
20
talked 60 days.
60 days, okay.
Yes,
So that would be included with whatever language we put together?
that's correct. So I think we
60
would,
days?
yeah, and it's the board's pleasure as to how, I mean,
And remember,
put
it's,
it out
a-
how
it's,
long you want, sorry.
this is simply a request for offers,
Yes. That we have.
none of
this-
which we have to accept.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the last line says it best.
Yes.
They can reject any and all offers
Yes.
at the sole discretion of the board.
Well, is the board comfortable with this wording, or you guys want any changes, or?
It comes from a lawyer, so it wouldn't bother me if if you want to change it.
I saw no letterhead on this.
There's your vote of confidence.
Well,
So-
hearing that, do I have a motion to approve this greatly written?
Well, I guess, one other caveat, we would also include in there, who's gonna open these bids? I mean, what,
Yeah, we'll.
take care of all that
We'll
other
get
part
rid
of
of the,
this.
or we'll take care of the specifics on all that stuff.
Okay,
So what I'm foreseeing is a 10 a.m. bid opening at the administrative offices 60 days out from when we put this.
So really what you're asking for is to, if this language, the offer of purchase is acceptable language?
Yep.
Okay.
And then will you come back again for us to approve the actual bid wording?
Well, actually, what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to present you with a purchase agreement containing those terms. So you will simply approve the language of the purchase agreement. You'll be accepting that, or modifying it,
Or rejecting it.
or rejecting it, yes.
Okay.
And like Steve said, that last line pretty much is a catch-all for you at that point.
Do we need to approve again whatever final version you come up with to put in the paper?
Your call.
Well, I think this is it, isn't it?
Well, I think so, but I'm hearing that this is it, but he's going to make changes.
Just changes having to do with dates and times.
Yeah, I mean, you want to, all you're going to do is you're going to set a deadline by which bids have to be, by which the offers have to be presented,
All right.
and the procedure.
And that will depend on when this hits the paper or wherever avenue we're going to publish it in.
Tell you what, so next paper will, or we won't make this one. Next paper would be the 10th, the edition of the 10th. If you would like to do the math 60 days out from there, we can get that on the calendar and the time, and you're basically all done with it tonight.
Okay.
If you want to do
And this
that.
is through White Bear Press,
Yep.
website.
Website, Facebook, neighborhood,
You probably should do a trade journal, too.
trade journal, yep, we talked about that.
Would there be something with League of Minnesota Cities?
I could, yep, I could,
It's
and,
possible.
yep, and so is MAT, they probably got the same setup, so.
Yep.
Let me see, 60 days out, so would be July, August.
Asking you to do math?
August, smart Alec. August 12th would be our opening date. We can make that 10 a.m. at the administrative offices. We will take bids, or we will open bids, and they will be submitted to the town board for approval at their next meeting, which would be the 17th of
Wow,
August.
timely.
Yep. How's that sound?
That specific enough for you guys?
Absolutely.
Okay. Great.
All right, somebody want to throw that into a motion?
And just, yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, we are not putting anything in here asking for a minimum bid, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I don't want tire kickers. If they're interested, they're interested.
Yeah, solid point.
Well, I will struggle with this. I'll make a motion to accept the language that was presented for us for agenda item 6C, titled Town of White Bear Request for Office of Purchase, as the acceptable language, with a caveat to add the dates that this will be published in the paper and when the bids will be open, et cetera,
Okay.
to the standards necessary.
We'll probably run it for 2 editions. We'll go on the 10th and the 17th of July. Opening date will be August 12th, 10 a.m. at the administrative offices.
And I'll amend my motion to.
So the
for those.
10th and 17th of June?
June, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
I will second that motion.
All right, motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, that takes care
Excellent.
of that one. Now, are we to 10B, the
Yes,
curfew?
yes, 10B. So,
Wait. We have to call a public hearing, don't we?
no,
No.
nope,
Didn't, you talked about that, I'm
Yep,
sorry.
we're good.
Sorry.
it's okay. 10B is basically just kind of doing a retroactive ratification of the curfew dates on May 30th and 31st that we called in accordance with the state's declaration having to do with the riots in Minneapolis and St. Paul. According to Ordinance 12, I ran this past Chad here, if I could find this. There we go. So just as an example, Under ordinance 12, the town clerk may temporarily revise the hours for sprinkling when water system storage levels fall below standards provided by the town community water supply plan for an unreasonable period of time. Temporary revision of hours for sprinkling shall remain in effect until the next meeting of the town board. At the next meeting, town board by resolution may adopt the revised hours or otherwise change the hours for sprinkling. So we're just basically doing something along those same lines. All we're doing is ratifying what happened Saturday and Sunday.
And what about, it sounds to me like we know we have a curfew tonight, too.
It did not, it ended at 6 a.m. this morning for us.
But they've got a new one.
But that's only for Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Oh, okay.
Yep, we are outside of
Thank
that.
you. I
Yep,
wasn't
no
sure
problem.
about that.
Unless the board feels it necessary to call for another curfew this evening.
Do you have any idea what the surrounding municipalities are doing?
It's hit and miss, a little bit more so. Roseville is staying in a curfew. They've got issues. Little Canada and, or no, not Little Canada, Maplewood are all doing curfews. They've had kind of a tough go of it, and they're going to keep it that. But we are under no requirement to do so. The city is not. They didn't want to interfere with coinciding with the opening with a lot of businesses, restaurants, and bars tonight. So,
Yeah, no, I would not do it for this evening, but I would suggest,
Pretty tough.
Yeah.
But
well, it's at 10 o'clock tonight.
Oh, that's
so,
right.
I mean,
We
got a couple more hours.
Yeah,
so.
10 to 4.
Or you
But,
get home.
but I would say that if, for some reason, later this week, there's a need for that, I feel very comfortable without going through the gyrations of the board, unless it's mandatory that we approve that the emergency team, management team we have together, make that decision and ratify it in retro if we have to, again. But for now, I think just ratify this and let Scott, I don't feel shorted if I don't have to be involved in an emergency decision to call a curfew. So I'm willing to, I'd say ratify this and make a decision based on circumstances if necessary.
Well, that's basically what we did Saturday morning.
Yes.
Yep.
Because when things started to hit the fan.
Yeah, and I think that's appropriate,
okay.
so. So, Mr. Chair, I'll move to ratify the May 30, 2020 action of the town to declare a two-day curfew, May 30th and 31st, from 8 PM to 8 AM for each of those days.
I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. The last one is the township days? Did I get this
Yeah.
right?
No,
No,
So,
No?
cleanup day.
cleanup.
Cleanup, oh, sorry.
cleanup day. So, the board asked that we meet in a special meeting with our utility commission to discuss the plans that Republic had come up for accommodating us for Township Cleanup Day, which is scheduled for now, June 20th. It will occur in two different parking lots, as we've spoken about, at the Otter Lake Elementary School. They are requiring, or the commission required, two forms of ID, driver's license and a water sewer bill. And that, this is where I've got a problem. That screening with a laptop remotely to make sure that addresses coincide with township addresses would be conducted on site as well. I was under the impression that Republic would be doing that. No. They're asking the township staff do that. We would be in charge of screening driver's licenses and bills, and basically being the interacting component between our residents and Republic. I'm uncomfortable with that.
Well, no, last year they handled it. We were just showing driver's licenses. Is that just because of the COVID-19 that they don't want to do it?
I don't want to, you know, I don't want to get overly critical about this, but they're very concerned about the health and safety of their employees.
Well, so are we.
Yeah.
And this is information that you learned after the utility
Afterwards.
meeting?
Yeah. So, I volunteered at the utility commission because logistically, I thought there was a necessity for me to do this, but I was gonna go out at the beginning of the thing, Saturday morning, I was gonna walk up and down that road all day, letting people know of their ID requirement, so that if people wouldn't be surprised if they got up there and were turned away. But I'm uncomfortable with having staff perform the ID screening function. Maybe I'm overreacting, but we were closed for the last 2.5 months based upon safety needs for our staff.
Right.
So I don't know if that just throws a huge wrench into things. Redessel said he would do it.
Oh, but Tom,
Yeah, I told Tom I wouldn't feel right about him doing it. The extent of our volunteering on behalf of cleanup day should be what I volunteered for. Beyond that, I don't,
well, do we have any other options?
postpone it.
I was just going to ask, is that a deal breaker then?
I don't like it.
Because I know we had talked about putting up our big signboard
Uh-huh.
up, so at least they're gonna see it in bold letters, because they're gonna sit there for 20 minutes looking at it.
Yep.
So when they show up, if they don't have it, they should have gotten out of line, but that's still not gonna help someone visually double checking it.
Yeah. So I hate to make it more complicated, folks, but that was not made clear to me beforehand.
Yeah, now it's already hit the paper. Well, board have any suggestions?
I would like to have had a little more time to think about it, because the issue, I agree with the safety type issue. And this is really promulgated because we've had, in my opinion, abuse
Yeah.
in the past years. And our Minnesota driver's license, while they'll say an address, it does not say White Bear Township. And anybody that has thought about it, they could easily show up there. And they didn't, they looked at a driver's license, it said White Bear, obviously let it go. And it's not their game to play, it's really is ours. So we either gotta let it happen with no identification and pay our lumps, or really postpone it or cancel it.
Because
And-
for like me, my zip code is basically
Yeah.
like Vadnais Heights. So
Yeah.
if they look at my driver's license, it says either St. Paul or Vadnais Heights, because it's 55127. That's not a White Bear Township zip code. 'Cause it's the other
And that's
side of
why the
freeway.
water sewer bill would come in handy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, would it be possible if we asked for somebody to volunteer, or even if we offered to pay somebody to do it? I'm not sure how that would work, but again, too, does that create an issue with they're staffed under the township?
Yeah, they're an employee then.
Yeah.
If they become an employee, they catch the virus, you got a potential problem in your hands.
Put them up to the window and hold them.
Or that, or get a piece of plexiglass and, like they do in the grocery stores now, one or the other. But yeah, Larry, you got a point there. Just don't roll your window down, yeah,
Put them up against the window.
that's a good idea.
Or whoever's doing it is carrying a shield?
Yeah, that, or yeah, face guard, or,
The windshield.
People are gonna roll their windows down.
yeah,
Well-
that's right.
Okay, that could be part of my job too. As I'm going up and down, I'll just let people know I'll be back 10 feet, let people know that A, you need your driver's license and your water sewer bill, and B, do not open your window when you get up there for the safety of staff.
You stay in your truck
Yeah,
or vehicle.
whatever it is.
How are you going to let them know? You going to hold a sign up?
Well, we had talked about sandwich board.
Oh, that's right. Talk to me.
Nope.
Don't talk to me.
No pictures. But I can probably, as I'm going up and down, I can stand 10 feet away from them as I'm telling them this.
Right in the middle of the road, so you can get run over. Boy, I don't know, this is,
It's hard. I don't, that's a good idea, Larry. But letting people know that beforehand is the challenge too. And we're gonna make it pretty clear, we've made it pretty clear that we're asking for these pieces of identification this year. The window thing is,
works if they have air conditioning, but you could sit, those lines were an hour long to sit there with your, well, they'd have to have them down before they got up there, but when they get up there, they have to have their windows up.
Yeah.
I think that has the most probable reason to do it, is to have the windows up and show that, if we're gonna insist on a utility bill. But, yeah, I guess the driver's license has to be with it, because they've got to match
Yeah. Yeah.
otherwise. And it's gotta be that flashing sign that says window must be up, and you must have these two forms of identification, but I don't know if that message board allows that much
Yeah, it does.
It
Does,
detail.
but we got two ends though. We only have one sign and
You know,
traffic coming this way.
I thought Dale had access to get some from the county, though,
Could ask.
or from the city. I think there were options last year where he could do that. And that gets to the traffic issue as part of that cleanup day. Last year, early on, we had the sheriff deputies controlling traffic, and it is a public safety nightmare on Township Cleanup Day at H2 and Otter Lake Road.
Yep.
Because some of them people were blocking the intersection.
Yes.
I mean, it was a merging game, you know, right there on our Lake Road southbound and H2 westbound, and they were playing that, I'm next, no, I'm next.
The ideal lineup would be up Otter Lake Road because it has a wider shoulder. H2 is a very narrow shoulder, but it was touch and go, and that's where the public safety people of the township, or the Ramsey County Community Service officers, whoever, need to be there. Yeah, they would do it in the past. They don't have to really get out of their vehicles, I guess. Well, I guess they do. But they did last year. They left too early, though.
They did. I did ask them to do this or perform the same function this year.
And they said,
Yeah, they'll be available. As long as there's no rioting.
Well-
For how long would they be available, assuming there's no rioting? Would they stay longer than last time?
7 to noon for sure.
Okay.
that should be plenty.
Would that be enough time then?
Yeah, it'll have to be. I mean, Ed, you were there late last year. Didn't you say that before? Well, I was there late because I was there and had it extended because there was no way that the residents were going to get in there before they left unless we extended it.
I was in line at like 1:45 and I didn't get up there till 2 o'clock.
And I had to call, I think I called you and said, they don't take my word for it. Who's going,
Yeah.
they took his word for it. You're the man.
The thing that we're, oh God. The thing that we're knocking up against that is, that's a problem, is that for the last 2.5, 3 months, people have been home eyeing stuff they want to get rid of.
Yes. They've been cleaning
They've been
house.
waiting for this day to get rid of that stuff. And I think we would have a lot of disappointed people on our hands if we canceled it. Postponing, maybe,
But then you got the road construction.
yeah, and this is cutting it. I mean, this is like 4 or 5 days before they're gonna start the road construction. So, yeah, you got that additional logistical challenge coming up if you postpone it.
Well, what is the way to communicate this change that they have to leave their, if we left their windows up and two identification, I know it was in the paper, but,
Yeah.
you know, people, I'd get more signage if we can and talk to Dale and see if we can get some.
Well, I think if we get 2 signs on both ends, like right before you, or maybe halfway between the starting points and when they're gonna get to the point where they drop stuff off, you know, you gotta be seeing that.
It's gotta,
Okay.
well, you're gonna put one right on the intersection of Otter Lake Road and H2.
Okay.
And that one would have to be almost facing east, northeast, so they can see it from either angle.
Yep,
And then whether it's a matter of something down the line farther, so they don't sit until they get all the way up to see it, but
there's still gonna be some that do that.
I know, and there's still gonna be some that get right up and go, I'm a township resident, I'm dumping, I don't care what you say.
Yeah, that's why the person that's doing this checking has to be right at the road before it turns into the school. Because once they've made that turn.
They're
there's
in.
There's no.
Yep.
And you let one, you're gonna have 5, and it's this exception business. They also should put, as I said last year, is that coming from the west heading east on H2, there should be a sign that says, "No left turn."
Yeah.
Into the school, because there were people that came from down your way.
Yep.
And they wanted to make that turn, they blocked all the traffic, and they just kept moving till they got in, which ticked off all the people that were already lined up in a long
Waiting for an
line.
hour.
Yeah, and so that is a challenge, and I think we should really have that put there too, that there would be no
left
left
turn.
turn.
Okay.
And coming out of there it's also dangerous, after they've dumped their load, they come out and want to make a left turn, come from the way they came.
Can't see anything.
You
that's
cannot
coming.
see anything with all those vehicles there. So we really need a public service person at the driveway entrance also, to try and keep that from, I mean, they have to turn left to go back. But
Yes.
it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So if you can have two of those people, I think that would help a lot. One down at H2 in Otter Lake, and one at the driveway.
Are you talking a sheriff's office person or staff?
No, community person, Ramsey County liaison people, or whoever you're gonna get to come out there and work.
Or elected officials?
Once you get.
I'll be in my truck waiting for 2 hours to
The
tell.
sheriff. Ask Mr. Fletcher to make an appearance. No, I'm just facetious here, but, no, I think that we gotta continue. I mean, I'm not asking to cancel it, I just think,
All right.
the identity is an important item behind glass, so that no one is exposed or limited the exposure for these COVID issues. If we can meet that, then we should go forward.
And I don't think you're ever going to be able to do it this year and deal with the COVID issues.
No,
Because they canceled the fair, they canceled on the basis that it's going to be with us through the fall. So you might as well do it. Either cancel it or just stick with your schedule.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
you're dialed in on this. You were making frequent calls to me last year.
I was.
Yes. So basically what I'm going to do then, if it's the pleasure of the board to keep this event in place, we'll do the no window. We'll have staff remote in to our utility records to just cross-reference ID and sewer and water bills. I will have to get together Sheriff's Office, Dale, me, and Republic to kind of walk through all the logistics involved. How about you join us?
Set me up, chief.
All right. Is that okay with the board? We can work through all this stuff together, I guess. It's probably the best thing to do.
Happy. Since I've been outspoken.
Okay.
And maybe the Ramsey County Sheriff may have something you could use too, some kind of portable barricade or whatever, something you can just handle.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to say they use it for sticks and stones when they start throwing stuff at you, but
I might need them for that.
When this is all over, Republic gives us a report as to how much was taken in, and also there's they charge us back in some way for this.
Yes.
Would it make sense to capture the amount of time you're spending on this and any other incidentals like Ramsey County and so on, so that we can take a look at the total cost of this for the perceived benefit? And I know it's been something in place for a long time, but we may have to take a look at how much does it actually cost to do?
yeah, we get, what, a $25,000 grant for part of it, but that doesn't cover it all.
Score grants.
Yep.
So, all right. So we'll proceed with the ID and window up caveats. Ramsey County Sheriff participation, a couple of signs, and maybe some community liaisons. We can talk through this with the principals involved.
Yeah.
I'll get them together this next week. Good?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. All right,
Any
thank
more
you.
hiccups you got up your sleeve there?
What's that?
You got any more hiccups up your sleeve?
Nope. That was a big one.
All right, does that conclude our agenda?
Yes, sir.
All right, item 11 is to receive agenda materials and supplements.
I will move to receive agenda material and supplements.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion's made, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? I need a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned at 8:19.
Thank you, gentlemen. And Megan.
Because